Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us.
Hello and welcome to Lexitecture, a podcast about word origins and histories. My name is Ryan, and in each episode my friend Amy and I present a new word to each other and you, delving into its past, uncovering its secrets, and discovering that even the most basic, unassuming word can offer up precious truth nuggets of wordy trivia gold. If that sounds like the show for you, it probably is, so tell your friends and come along for the ride. Today's episode, Gorgeous Disco. This episode is going to come out the day before Lexitecture officially turns 1.
Oh!
Yeah, our first ever
Man.
episode it dropped on March 12th, 2018, and if
Really?
people
It's
are
only
listening to
been
this
a
right
year.
now on the day it dropped, today is March 11th. Through the magic of time travel. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's been less, it's still for the next 5 days, it's been less than a year. And it will be 1 year officially old on March 12th.
I think that's I think we've had a pretty good year.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
We have...
I can't believe it's only been not quite a year.
Yeah. It seems simultaneously like a lot longer and a lot shorter than that.
Yeah.
Oddly,
Yeah, I know what
at
you
the
mean.
same time. But, yeah, so... Hello to all of we have listeners to talk to.
We
well,
have
which
listeners.
is
Happy
weird.
birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Of course.
Yes.
Of course, the incredibly stringent Warner Brothers owning lawyers will probably be on our tail because I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but it's very, very hard to find a recording of that birthday song online and on YouTube and things like that, because whoever it is I think it's Warner Brothers that owns it, and presumably they have really good lawyers.
Presumably,
so maybe we'll get to a year and then we'll get sued for all the money that we don't have, and then that'll be it.
for the grossly misappropriated use of the birthday song. I thought I heard somewhere that
Okay, hang on a minute. Let's try this instead. Now, please be aware that I'm making this up as we speak and think. This is a real-time composition.
Okay, I'm excited.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us.
I like that even better.
Well, there we go. No one owns that one because I just made it up.
That should be the birthday song. You own that.
I do. It's recorded and everything.
That's fantastic. All right, that's the one then. I'll decide later if I leave both versions in or if I just snip out the one that could, I guess, somehow get... I don't know. I think that's... Yeah.
I think that the next episode should just be that song on a loop for however long our episodes usually last.
That's right. Just 45 minutes of the Amy Hanlon Lexitecture birthday original. Fantastic. I can't think of a better way to celebrate 1 year.
Ah, dear.
Nothing says podcasting anniversaries like making up a birthday song.
It's been a year of serious hard work, graft, so much tedious, awful time spent to do the things that we do. It is not in any way some research and a whole lot of silliness.
Yeah, no, of course not.
No, definitely not. That you could never describe our podcast thusly.
As a slight bit of research and mostly silly. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. There's not nearly enough gravitas involved in that. Come on.
Yeah, I had to have a gravitasectomy a long time ago. I just can't pull it off.
Oh, I like that. I'm totally gonna steal that.
I do very much enjoy the fact that you can make words up so very easily.
Yeah.
Using suffixes and prefixes like that.
Oh, it's great. And
what other sorts of ectomies would be interesting? I'd quite like a depression-ectomy, anxiety-ectomy.
A grumpectomy.
If either of those things could be managed, that would be awesome.
I've met some people who could use a grumpectomy.
Yes, for sure. And
Yeah.
if complainectomies could possibly happen,
Yeah.
I'd like those quite a lot.
Would it be
Although I don't know, am I right now complaining by complaining that people complain?
a monectomy?
Monectomy.
Yeah.
Some
No
teenagers
silliness
could do with a
involved.
sassectomy.
Oh, had a lot of scared
Yeah,
teenagers for a second until they actually parsed the word you just said.
definitely a sassectomy.
Yeah. Wow.
I
That's
didn't
good.
think until you said it that, yeah, an assectomy would be very inconvenient for everyone concerned.
Yeah. That's. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Presumably, we would be like those worms that don't have an anus, and their lifespan is basically as long as it takes for them to fill up with poop, and then they die.
It's times like this that I wish that we named our episodes after the funniest thing we said that day. In which case, I mean, I'm definitely going to extract that clip and use it sometime this weekend as a little teaser for this episode. Lexitecture, happy birthday to us. We fill up with poop, then we die. And that's... Yeah, no silliness involved here. We are studious
None.
academics who know what we are talking about. On that note, should we do some words that other people have made up?
Let's do some words that other people have made up. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
You take it away.
Okay, cool. I came across this word by a bit of a circuitous... I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that word. I know what I mean.
I think that's good.
Circuitous. However, that goes. Method. Because you'll never guess, I was being silly.
No.
I was talking to one of my very good friends about the fact that when someone takes the time to teach me something, I learn it well.
Right.
You know, I feel like I'm good at learning. And sometimes even things that I'm not naturally very good at, if someone has sort of spent the time breaking that activity down or giving it to me in a, explaining it in a slightly different way, I listen very carefully to that. I take it in, I remember a lot of what I've been told. And I said maybe that could be like my unofficial motto. I learn well. And of course, because it was a motto, I started to wonder, what would that be in Latin? I learn well.
Okay.
And because my Latin it's pretty rusty, let's say. I studied Latin at school, and that was a long time ago. But I used Google Translate to come up with this motto, being well aware that Google Translate, like all online translator, would have its limitations. So I typed in the phrase "I learn well" into Google Translate, and what popped up was disco bono.
I'm sorry. What?
Disco bono. And I giggled quite a lot. Actually, did that come from Google, or did I decide that was the one? I think I possibly looked up the word to learn first and decided that, so discere is the infinitive of the word to learn. And so I'm like, okay, as far as I remember from Latin verb endings,
Right.
first person singular of discere would be disco. And I know that bono, as in pro bono, for the public good, means good. So somehow or another, I came up with disco bono. And this was hilarious.
That's
so
fantastic.
I shared this with my friend, and she said, it's a long time since I've done any Latin either, but I think you might be slightly... I don't know how accurate that particular translation is.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't care. I like that one. I think I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of Google Translating and had a look in some various online Latin dictionaries, and I figured that it's probably more correct to say disco bene, which is still pretty awesome.
It's still pretty awesome.
Disco bono, disco bene, any of these phrases could be my unofficial motto. But I was fascinated by the word disco.
Yeah.
Because of course, it makes you think of the not unawesome style of music popularised by such greats as Donna Summer and millions of other people whose names escape me right at the moment. And to anyone who has mixed feelings about disco, I would direct the musical style. I would direct them to the wonderful Mystery Men film. And
Right.
Eddie Izzard's character, who is called something like Disco Pete or Disco Joe, I forget exactly. And when when the archenemy bad guy is released from the asylum, he says to Disco Eddie, or whatever his name is, "So I hear Disco is dead." And Eddie Izzard's character says, "Disco is not dead!" and gets very angry.
Right.
For some reason, my TV has just come on in the other room quite loudly.
Oh.
I'm not sure why that is, or indeed how that is, but I'm going to go and switch it off.
If it's playing Mystery Men.
That would be kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. So the good news is, or I suppose the bad news, depending on how you want to look at it, is I don't have a ghost. But I did do that really annoying thing, or certainly my husband finds it really annoying, where I didn't switch the Netflix, the streaming thing off. I just paused it and left it for a long time.
Oh,
and then
okay.
eventually it reverted to whatever it was doing before that. Anyway, disco.
Yes.
So, disco is not dead. In fact, the word disco has been alive for a really long time, because here we have the Latin word disco, meaning I learn. And I thought, wow, does this word have anything to do with the awesome musical style?
Right.
So I did myself some looking up, and I discovered, no, it has absolutely nothing to do with the musical style.
Okay.
So discotheque, disco being a contraction of the word discotheque, is first cited, it's first written down, according to the OED, in 1929, and is used to mean a library or collection of gramophone records. And I love this citation so much. Great Britain's contribution to the world's gramophone music consists of only 2 discs, which should be found in any gentleman's discotheque.
Ooh. Any
Yeah, so
gentleman's
very
discotheque.
formal. I loved it. So we have Modern Language Journal in 1946 saying the records should be made available to students through the creation of a language discotheque or library of records. Now, I don't know about you, but I would love to get in and about a language discotheque.
Yeah.
Or library of records from Modern Language Journal.
A gentleman's discotheque, I would really want to go inside, but I'd probably want to wear a disguise.
I feel like...
I'd be really hesitant.
Although I'm aware of what a gentleman's discotheque actually means, it kind of feels like everything inside might be wiped clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. A place where dreams go to die. Not gentlemen's dreams, of course.
No.
So, we then have the second meaning of the word disco, a dance hall, nightclub, similar venue where recorded music is played for dancing, typically equipped with a large dance floor, an elaborate system of flashing coloured lights, and a powerful amplified sound system. Also an event or party at which music and dancing take place in a similar environment. So, disco, we have from our etymology, quite simply from disc, as in a record.
Right.
And this connective tech, which is used in various French words, because the word is of French etymology. So nothing whatsoever to do with learning, or learning well or otherwise. And I find myself wondering, are there any other words like this? And discovered not only there are many, many words like this, but there's also a name for them. And thus I anyway,
Whichever.
I found myself emerging into the world of false cognates. So Wikipedia has this to say about false cognates. False cognates are pairs of words that seem to be cognates because of similar sounds and meanings, but have different etymologies. They can be within the same language or from different languages. Still reading from Wikipedia here. For example, the English word dog and the Mbabaram word dog have exactly the same meaning, but by complete coincidence. The article goes on to explain other examples and various other interesting facts about it. But that was the point at which I kind of stopped reading, because I wondered immediately when I saw this word written down, Mbabaram, what's this language? So, of course, because it was a link, I clicked on it, clack, and and I discovered that this language, which is spelled Mbabaram, is an extinct Australian Aboriginal language from North Queensland. So the last speaker of this language seems to have died out in, I've lost the bit where I've written that down. Not all that long ago is essentially what I'm saying. And Mbabaram is famous in linguistic circles for a striking coincidence in its vocabulary. And this is, there's a certain part of the article here that's set aside for the word for dog. So here was this false cognate. And there are lots of other false cognates given in the Wikipedia article. We have, for example, I thought you would like this one, English dung and Korean pong.
Right.
They mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And they are in no way etymologically linked.
I've always wondered about that, actually.
Me too.
I always kind of assumed it was one of those English loanwords in Korean.
So there's a list of about 20 English examples. There are lots of others. I found a very interesting article about false cognates in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably the most famous, well-known false cognate in Spanish is embarazada, which people assume when they're learning from English that it means embarrassed.
Right.
And in fact, it means pregnant.
Right, yeah. I think I remember finding that when I did the word embarrass.
And
but I don't think I noticed it.
The interesting thing about this is this takes us into the world of false friends.
Right.
So false friends are words that look or sound similar, but their meaning is different.
Okay.
And so we have English embarrassed and Spanish embarazada, but they do in fact have a common etymological root. If you go back far enough and interestingly enough, you find that that's the case. So the difference between a false friend and a false cognate is the false cognate truly has no etymological link. The words are, by complete coincidence, the same word, meaning the same thing, but they've just kind of sprouted up as if by magic.
Okay.
So
a false cognates are a pair of words that mean the same thing but have no actual relation, and false friends are words that sound like they ought to mean the same thing but don't, but they may in fact be related anyway, even though they mean different things.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Neat.
It is the sort of distinction that only people like you and I and others of our ilk would get stressed out about, but nonetheless, I think that we're allowed to get stressed out about such things.
Yeah, I think so.
So, it was very interesting to find out about false cognates, and indeed to find out about the Mbabaram language. And I did a little bit more Googling about this extinct Australian Aboriginal language, and this brought me to Reddit.
Okay.
And the thread is, "Today I learned." Now, I don't use Reddit. My husband has recently discovered Reddit and he thinks it's the best thing in the world because he loves funny pictures.
Right.
And as far as I'm aware, that's what Reddit is for. Funny pictures and slightly hilarious comments every now and again. Plus, like any social media, internet type phenomenon, a whole load of dank black terribleness.
I was gonna say, if the extent of your and Ross's experience with Reddit is funny pictures and memes and jokes, then I wish you nothing but the best.
Yes. Now remember how I felt about Twitter?
I do, yeah.
To begin with, yeah? And then I looked up Scot Bio for some slightly random reason and discovered that he had not aged well either in terms of his physical appearance, which, like, I mean, I'm not that bothered about how Scot Bio looks. He's a fairly aged gentleman these days.
Yeah.
But also his political beliefs were slightly jarring to me.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, so Reddit, this particular thread, today I learned, when I googled Mbabaram, I found this comment that says, Googled Mbabaram to learn about its origin and whatnot. About 1/3 of the way through, whoa, Blackberry, Babaram, popped in my head. So yeah, I gave up on that. Further comments point out that bam, 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 bam
Yeah.
also works pretty well. And in fact, I started to tell my husband about this, and he immediately chimed in with Barbara Ann. So it would seem that while I may not think in song lyrics and jingles, there are plenty of other people in the world who do.
Barbara Ann was actually the first thing that came to my mind when you said that.
Really, that's very cool. I like that. So what I have learned about the word to learn is quite a lot of really interesting stuff that doesn't actually have a great deal to do with the word to learn. However, I've had great fun learning it.
Absolutely.
When you look up the Latin word disco, I found a site called wordhippo.com that laid out 7 different meanings for the word. We have to learn, to study, to recognise, to become acquainted with, to acquire knowledge, to receive information, and to be told. So while I may not have told you a great deal about the word disco, I feel like I've done all of those things in my investigations this week.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
so there
Lexitecture out.
You have discovered a lot of stuff.
Indeed.
That's fascinating. I like that. Yeah, those are false friends, false cognates, all kinds. I like the dog was one of my favorite words.
Yes.
That I've looked up just because of how sort of bizarre and shrouded in mystery it is, and just the fact that an Aboriginal Australian, East Coast Australian Aboriginal language came up with the same word for the same thing with equally mysterious origins. It's only aliens. It's got to be aliens.
Do you know, I was actually going to, when I said it's as if these words have just been dropped out of nowhere, I was going to add, like the aliens dropped the pyramids in Egypt.
Yeah.
And then I didn't quite get there, but, you know, I'm kind of thinking that.
Yeah, you'd be forgiven for making that not at all huge leap, I don't think. I think that's fair. That's very cool. Thank you very much.
There were 2 speakers of Mbabaram left in 1981. That was bothering me, so I had a look at it.
81, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, as I say, it's an extinct language, but it's fairly recently extinct.
So one could typify things if one wanted to come up with a new general division of the historical timescale for Earth. One could say that it's either the Mbabaram era or my lifetime.
Indeed.
The world has either had me or that language. But never both.
Well, I don't know. I'm the same. I was also born in 1981, but it says that there were 2 speakers left in 1981. So presumably.
Oh, so there may be some overlap.
I was pretty sure that when I was looking at this, it said that the last speaker was a guy called Alec Chalk, and that he died in. Hold on. I think what I'm looking for is. Okay. Oh no, this is someone looking for information about on genealogy.com.
Oh, okay.
So I would have to I'd have to do some further investigating of that, which is very annoying because, as I say, I'm pretty sure I had that number in my head when I was researching this episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, never mind.
Cool. Yeah. So my word this week is gorgeous.
Nice.
In that I mean, it is a nice word. It is a gorgeous word, I guess. But the word itself is gorgeous. This is getting into very Abbott and Costello territory, and we're already running afoul of one ancient studio with lots of high-powered lawyers. So let's not do that again. So the word gorgeous in English dates back to the turn of the 16th century. So the earliest use referring to people in reference to the clothes that they wore is 1496, I love living in the future. I just love living in the future in general. But especially with the OED, and this is one of those, I know this is a niche thing, but you're listening to this podcast, so you're in this with me too.
Welcome to our niche.
Being
Come
able
in,
to
play
kind of
nicely.
find an attestation in the OED from 1496, click on their little thing that expands what their title is from their abbreviation, and then Google that, and then find the text of that work is fantastic.
Yeah, that is
Just being able to.
amazing.
I can't read it. It's Middle English. I don't know how to read Middle English. At some point, I would love to learn, simply because listening to Kevin Stroud read Middle English on the History of English podcast is fantastic. And I want to do that. But this work, just because I looked it up and because it's awesome, is the Epitaph of the Most Noble and Valiant Jasper, late Duke of Bedford, Volume 1.
Well, there we go.
1496, yeah. So gorgeous.
I like that 2 volumes of epitaph are required.
Yeah. And he was talking about ladies and damsels being gorgeous for some reason. I guess that was important to the Most Noble and Valiant Jasper. So that's the first use of it, and then it's always sort of basically meant the same thing. Like this isn't a word that has a lot of twists and turns after that point, where over the centuries it developed. It just always meant quite nice, very nice, exquisite, fine.
You know how I feel about nice, Ryan?
Yeah. It's it's from the Old French, I guess Georgia, Gorgias, which meant elegant or finely dressed, fashionable, gay, and the OED stops at of uncertain origin.
Excellent.
Which I quite like.
I do love those words.
It stops there. Edom Online draws a line which I feel is fair, just from looking at it and looking at a couple other things, with the fact that that French word, Gorgias, Georgia, I guess, was a word meaning necklace. And so its assumption is, it basically draws that line and says, well, it's probably from this word, and the implication is that it's someone who is fond of or resplendent as jewelry. And so that's where that, which makes sense, a name for a piece of finery becoming the byword for elegance and finery more generally doesn't seem like that big a stretch to me.
No, it doesn't.
That seems reasonable. And so then we keep going from there, once we're at that, the meaning of necklace, and then that word comes from an older Old French word, which is spelled just like the word gorge, Gorge, which meant throat. So that makes sense.
I was kind of wondering whether or not this would come up.
Well, this is why one of the things that made me want to look this word up is for anyone who hasn't met me even once, because once is all it would take. I'll be frank, I'm self-aware enough to know that. I am a fan of puns. And so at some point I used the word gorgeous to describe a gorge, and that kind of stuck in my head and went, oh yeah, that's a weird thing, because there's nothing inherently beautiful about a gorge. They are quite nice usually, but it doesn't usually mean the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
But the word gorge meant throat, or more generally in the 12th century, a narrow passage.
Okay.
And it comes from a Latin word, a late Latin word, which meant gullet or throat or jaws, but also gulf or whirlpool. And so it always seems to have had that thing. So the word gorge, like a narrow canyon or chasm or pit, comes from its resemblance of a throat of some kind, just as a vague allegory. It comes ultimately from a Proto-Indo-European root, gwora, Gwora, which meant food or devouring. And so that kind of makes sense with the throat and the narrow closure connection. The GW at the start of that seems to have morphed into a V in European languages and on its way to English, because that's where we get words like devour or
voracious
perhaps, or carnivore, herbivore, all the vores describing what people eat or what things eat. It all comes from the same root that we get gorge and gullet and ultimately gorgeous.
Wow,
We're
isn't
very
it interesting?
elegant.
I'm just thinking, as you mentioned, herbivores. We talk about animals as herbivores or carnivores, but we felt the need to create the word vegetarian when humans started to not eat meat.
Yeah,
When
I
in fact
prefer
there
to
was a
call them herbivores, but
perfectly good word meaning I only eat
yeah, we
grown
already have
things.
that.
Yeah,
I think they should
interesting.
start using herbivores, personally. But um, this word does appear in Smith's Synonyms Discriminated, which always makes me happy.
Hooray!
And it's interesting because the thing I love about this book, just for people just tuning in, we've had a couple new listeners, I think, in the last little while. Smith's Synonyms Discriminated is my new, since doing this podcast, favorite old book reference work. I've since forgotten the date that it was published, but it's a reverend by the name of Smith decided he would write a work drawing the lines as he saw them between words that were commonly thought of as synonyms at the time. And so one of my favorite things about this is that it's usually written in very interesting ways, because Smith had a way with words, not to the surprise of nobody. But also it's interesting to see what people considered synonyms at the time, because it doesn't always line up today.
Sure.
And so for this entry, he has gorgeous paired with sumptuous.
Nice.
And what he says about gorgeous versus sumptuous is, quote, both terms express a character of the imposing, but the gorgeous represents that which is so through amplitude and color, while sumptuous is that which gives the same impression from its costliness. Gorgeous, for instance, or sumptuous furniture. A sumptuous repast would be one consisting, among other things, of costly dishes. A gorgeous repast would imply the precious metals and high decoration in any way. End quote. So first of all, I love the word repast. And second, to me, sumptuous doesn't, I mean, maybe it means that. It doesn't connote that. Costliness.
Now that's interesting, because to
me,
me, that is exactly what the connotations of sumptuous are.
Really?
Costly,
okay.
expensive.
So for me, sumptuous, something about the mouthfeel of sumptuous makes it, like, I would think a sumptuous meal or something. I picture something plush, but not necessarily in a tactile way, but like a sumptuous meal is something you can really sink yourself into and
rich.
be absorbed
That's
by.
what
I mean, I guess rich is the other. Yeah, I mean, I suppose
about.
there's rich, the other sense of rich. But to me, in my mind, you can have something that is sumptuous, but also not particularly expensive. It's that other quality of so thoroughly enjoyable that it sucks you in and enwraps you in awesomeness.
That's interesting. As I say, I've always assumed that kind of sumptuous clothing, for example, sumptuous meal. I've certainly heard the word used to describe food and dishes and banquets and things like that. But no, I feel as though that shading of wealth and richness, both in terms of the quality of the food and in terms of the cost of the food, is all there in a
This may be
sumptuous...
just revealing a long-standing misunderstanding of mine as sumptuous, because the dictionary.com definition of gorgeous in definition 1 says splendid or sumptuous in appearance, coloring,
interesting,
etc., magnificent. So I think it's just a word that I didn't, and I because I am but a broken human, I didn't bother looking up where sumptuous came from and how that relates, because it's a fun word to say, and it's interesting. It's the kind of thing I would normally have looked up, but I didn't. But that's gorgeous.
I'm wondering about assumption and consuming, and I'm going to look it up just now.
That's the stuff that I immediately kind of went. And I think maybe that's where I get the sense where it applies, like I would more readily apply it to food than clothing or furniture.
Oh, now this is very interesting. Sumptuous, Etym Online says, late 15th century from Old French somptueux, or directly from Latin sumptuosus, costly, very expensive, lavish, wasteful. From sumptuous, past participle of summary, to borrow, buy, spend, eat, drink, consume, employ, take, or take up. A contraction of sub-emery, from sub under, and emery, to take or to buy. And from the PIE root, em, to take or to distribute. Oh, interesting.
There's more to that. I'm going to look that up later.
Yeah,
There's more. There's more there. Anyway, so there's gorgeous, from throats to chasms to passageways to pretty things.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I immediately started to think about gorge as in throat. And what I was thinking about that is, as well as the sense of, kind of jewellery, it is a part of the body that, particularly in women, is described a great deal historically, that I don't think many people really care about these days. Like throats, necks, pillars of ivory, that kind of honorific, very lavish praise of a woman with a long neck or a slim neck or a pale throat or anything like that. These days, I wouldn't imagine there are all that many descriptions of beautiful women or men out there that draw attention to that particular part of the body. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm pondering that, because it's interesting, because for me, gorge is the last. It's the last place I go with that word, because I go for the geologic feature.
Okay, sure.
First, and then I thought, okay, that makes sense, because but I have to go through engorge to get there, because I don't often hear the word gorge as far as specifically for throat, and so I'm wondering.
I was thinking about it in terms of your gorge rising, that almost vomiting sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. Isn't it interesting that my brain goes there and your brain goes to canyons?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, I wonder if this is one of these latent, like, because as you say, if it's the kind of thing that gets, if it's the sort of thing on a woman that gets picked apart often enough, I wonder if there's something to that. Like, if that's a thing that I'm just not as sensitive to, because nobody talks about dudes' throats. I don't know.
You see, I would call this episode "Nobody Talks About Dudes' Throats."
We have all kinds of subtitles for this.
You can keep
this
your
is going to be
warm.
The easiest online
I'm amused
marketing.
by dudes' throats.
Dude throats. Yeah, dude throats and worm poop. That's what.
But yeah, I often wonder about that sort of thing. I remember a wonderful Joe Brand sketch, and you're probably aware of Joe Brand from panel shows, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
But quite a long time ago, she did. I don't know if she did a whole sketch show. That doesn't really sound like her style. But certainly she was involved in this sketch, and it featured her and another woman, and they were lying on couches, and they were Renaissance models.
Okay.
And the other woman in the sketch was, the sort of model, thin, ideal body as far as we see it today.
Right.
And she was sort of saying, "Oh God, I wish I looked like you. Look, my breasts are so small, and I don't have any stomach rolls at all, and have all this abundance of," and obviously the comment was that the ideals of beauty have changed over the centuries.
Right.
But I do think it would be very interesting to imagine a world where, for example, knees were the thing that were considered super sexually attractive.
Yeah.
And how would our fashions have evolved, and how would our media and society have evolved around a knee-centric kind of idea of beauty?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think of just a relatively minor alteration at some point along the line could change quite a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that was a lot of fun.
very staid and sensible.
Oh,
And in no
obviously.
way silly.
In no way silly. That's not what we do here. Thank you very much. So, yeah, happy birthday to us.
Happy birthday to us.
I'm absolutely
Clearly,
cutting
I
out
can't
that.
remember the song that I made up an hour ago, or however long ago it was.
It will be
So-
the first thing people hear when they play this episode, though. That's going before the intro. It's going before it's everything. That's the first thing. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited.
I'll listen back to it and try and learn my own song.
And then the filling up with poop and then we die is definitely going to be the little teaser clip if I can get around to it in the next couple of days. I'm excited.
Oh, surely nobody thinks about dudes' throats. This is getting in there somewhere.
It's got to get there somewhere. It'll happen somewhere in there. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks very much.
No worries, thank you.
Shall we do this again in the coming weeks?
As far as I'm aware, Oh, we didn't. Hey, Roger, what do you say? Do we have plenty, or will I look these words up?
I think we have plenty, but if you would like to look it up, we can check and see what Monsieur Roger has to say.
Let's have a gander. So, the word gorgeous makes me think of Little Britain, and I don't know how aware you are of Little Britain.
I'm aware of it, but
and
not...
I figure, I actually had a conversation about this quite recently. I feel as though it may not have aged all that well. I don't mean that it's not funny. I mean, I think there are jokes and tropes that wouldn't be considered politically correct by 2019 standards. But I also feel quite sure that the spirit in which the comedy is intended is not it's not intended to be offensive or mean. But it's Matt Lucas and David Walliams, and it's sort of little sketches, and they have a character who comes up in various sort of situations, and one of them, this character has been attacked, and she's trying to describe her attacker to the police, and what she keeps saying over and over again is, "Oh, he was gorgeous." And so whenever I hear the word gorgeous, I imagine gorgeous.
Right.
Okay. Where are we? There. Oh, now interestingly, the word after gorgeous in Roger is a word that I was considering might be a cognate while you were talking about narrow passages and gullies and whirlpools. I was wondering about the Gorgons, as in Medusa, and whether they might be related. Anyway.
Oh, right.
Roger has this to say for gorgeous. We have florid, which is a wonderful word.
That is.
Super, splendid, another word I'm very fond of.
Yep.
Ornamented or showy. So yeah, nothing that seems hugely out of place, but nothing that would kind of send you to Skeery if you were using a thesaurus to sort of increase your vocabulary.
It's a pretty straightforward one.
Yeah, gorgeous stayed pretty static. And disco. This is one of the things that I admire most about Susie Dent. She looks things up in dictionaries so quickly. She never has to go, wait a minute, where does the alphabet go? How does this work? What?
Singing the alphabet song on her fingers as she's going
Exactly. Along. Okay, so we have disco or discotheque, dancing, place of amusement, or social gathering. Yeah, again, pretty stable words. The word
and no mention of the U2 song at all.
Sorry?
And no mention of the U2 song at all, despite your motto being Disco Bono.
Disco Bono, indeed. The word disco always reminds me of a former colleague of mine who, in the staff room at lunchtimes and breaks, she would drink her tea or coffee out of a mug that said on it, "I'd rather be at the disco." Okay. And there was just something so very charmingly dated, yet the meaning was still clearly conveyed. Yeah. I like that mug a lot.
That's a good mug.
Yeah.
A quality mug is a good thing. It's a good
Well,
thing
you
to
see,
have.
I don't drink tea or coffee, so it's kind of... I have mugs, but I very rarely use them.
You don't drink tea.
No.
Does that...
Is that
are you
allowed?
allowed
That's
to
what you
live where
mean.
you live?
It's
Do you have to hide
kind
that?
of annoying because, I mean, once upon a time I worked in an office. I worked for the NHS, and the whole day was structured around where was the next cup of tea coming from. And certainly, you know, when I spend time with other tea drinking people, I do wonder if tea has got crack in it, because
Right.
whole days out can be dominated by the availability of the next cup of tea.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, I might occasionally, if I have a sore throat or I'm feeling particularly cold and the weather is gloomy, I might have ginger tea,
Oh, okay.
but I don't drink tea because largely I don't like the taste of tea most of the time, and coffee I quite like the taste of, but it makes me absolutely bonkers, so I don't
Right.
drink it. I also, because I'm the most sensitive human being in the world, it would seem, I get a massive caffeine come down after I drink a cup of coffee.
Oh,
So,
okay.
who needs drugs?
Yeah, exactly. It is a bit of a drag.
But yeah, I was fully 35 before my parents stopped offering me a cup of tea or coffee every single time I went into their house. And I would say every time they would say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" I don't drink tea or coffee. Oh yeah, that's right. It took 35 years for that.
It's like, have we, in fact, met?
Several times.
Wow.
But yeah, it also means I don't speak coffee.
Right.
You know, if I go into a Starbucks or other coffee chains are available, and they say, "What would you like?" I look at the menu and think, none of these words have any place in my vocabulary.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, Starbucks is its own thing.
Really? See, I don't even know that. I don't know enough about
Like,
coffee to be aware of that.
You can go into you can go into Starbucks and say, I want a cup of coffee. But Starbucks has developed its own language, its own grammar, its own lexicon
Yeah.
for the different things, and I feel like I need a phrase book when I go in there.
I suppose that's interesting in a linguistic sort of way, but it's not terribly interesting to me because I don't need to learn to talk about coffee. It's, you know, it would be a space in my brain that could otherwise be taken up by something useful.
When I do go into Starbucks, I don't avoid it, but it's not my first choice. If there's other coffee places around, I'll go there. But if I do go into Starbucks, my general ordering technique is to say that I would like an enormous cup, and I would like them to fill it with the thing they make that has the most caffeine and the most sugar in it.
And what I like about that is, I bet you get what you want every time.
Absolutely. I've never been disappointed with what I get. I get a thing, and then I leave, and then I'm
a big cup
I'm generally
with as much
happy.
caffeine as you can legally put into that big cup.
Yeah, like I want you to hurt me with sugar and caffeine in a large cup. Go. That's it for another episode of Lexitecture. If you like what you've heard, please spread the words. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Lexitecture, Lexitecture, and find us on our website at lexitecture.com. We also love hearing from you, so if you've got a word you'd like us to look into, a tasty bit of trivia to share, or anything else you'd like to tell us, drop us a line at words@lexitecture.com. Talk to you next time. Bye.